Hello board game brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode where we'll be doing a deep dive digging into the Robinson Crusoe Collector's Edition, and I'll be providing you all the info that I have so you can decide if this is a game that you want to back or back out of. I highly recommend you watch this whole video. There's going to be lots of info scattered throughout the video, and I'm just going to glaze over the things that you probably already know. And to start, Robinson Crusoe is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players, and it takes about 60 to 120 minutes to play. In this game, players are going to be survivors shipwrecked on a deserted island. The game offers several very different scenarios for players to play, and they're going to put you on some different islands with different themes and their own secrets to discover. Usually a game will involve you building your shelter, dealing with wildlife, weather, and hundreds of event cards, crafting weapons and tools, and completing scenario-specific objectives. The base game offers 7 scenarios, and I'll go through these now. The first one is your classic survival scenario where you're going to be gathering wood and trying to create a fire so that a passing ship might spot you and rescue you. The second one is called the Cursed Island, and a mysterious fog has covered the island, making sections of the island unavailable. Players are a team of exorcists who must build crosses and push the dark forces out of the island. Then the third scenario is called Jenny Needs Help, and Jenny is actually one of the shipwrecks stuck on some rocks a few miles from the coast, and players are going to have to build a raft to bring her to land before the tide takes her away. And then there's the Volcano Island, which is similar to an Indiana Jones scenario, and players are a band of treasure hunters who are gathering treasure all while a volcano is erupting. You're going to have to run from the volcano while trying to gather up as much treasure as you can. And then we have Cannibal Island, which is the toughest scenario, and it tells a story of a cannibal city that players must conquer and destroy. And the sixth scenario is called Family Robinson, and this is a longer scenario where players have accepted the fact that there's going to be no rescue and they're going to have to live on the island. You're going to have to raise your kids and farm the land in order to survive. And then the final scenario is called King Kong, and in this one, players are a film crew who are trying to hunt down the beast. So now let's get into the campaign and see what exactly it's offering, and I'll be letting you know exactly what's new and what is the same in previous versions. And this campaign is essentially focused on 2 main areas. There's the collector's edition of Robinson Crusoe, which comes with a bigger box and some stretch goals and miniatures. And then there's the Book of Adventures that doesn't have a storage solution of its own, but it's going to come with a bunch of new scenarios and its own stretch goals as well, which I'll get into shortly. All the stretch goals for both the collector's edition and the Book of Adventures are going to be exclusive to this campaign, so you won't be able to get them in retail. This campaign will be offering the previous expansions if you're interested in those as well, but there's no difference between the retail edition and what you'll be getting in this campaign. One expansion is missing, and that's the Beagle expansion, and the reason it's not here is because it's currently in redevelopment. So does that mean that there'll be another campaign in the future? I have no idea. So what exactly is going to be new in this campaign? Well, first of all, there's a 4-scenario tutorial campaign which will gradually teach you everything you need to know to enjoy the game of Robinson Crusoe, and this is going to give you an alternative method to learn the game. It's designed to introduce new players to the game, so you probably don't want to play this if you're an experienced player. It won't be as fun as the proper scenarios, but it'll be a good way to learn the game. And this is probably something I wouldn't even play with other people. I would just play it solo so that I can learn the game myself, and then I would teach the game and play a real scenario. And then of course we have the brand new miniatures, which are all designed by Awakened Realms, and I'll be digging into these in a little bit more detail shortly. And then there is the companion app, and this is going to give you access to 300 brand new events and adventure cards, and this is going to be playable with any scenario in the game. But for those of you that aren't interested in using an app, they will be offering physical cards as well as an optional buy. This campaign supports a few languages, and many of them have been added throughout the campaign, so if there's a specific language you've been waiting for, I'll just go over all the ones that are supported as of now. So we have English, German, Italian, Spanish, Polish, and I think this one's Hungarian, although that flag looks similar to some other countries. And then we have Korean and Portuguese. And I know a lot of you have been waiting for French, but this isn't going to be offered in this campaign because of some legal reasons. For those of you that might have been worried about additional costs during shipping, there's not going to be any additional fees or VAT to anyone in the EU, the UK, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, or Brazil. Pledges are estimated to be delivered around February of 2022 for the English edition, and then all other languages will follow about 2 to 3 months after that. For those of you wondering if there's going to be a big box solution that'll fit everything in this campaign along with the existing expansions, the answer is no. But you can pledge for €1 and have full access to the pledge manager at the end of the campaign if you want to see total costs before you commit to anything. But if you did sign up ahead of time and get that €5 credit, make sure that you pledge for €6 now. So now let's get into the Collector's Edition, and this is going to be the exact same game and contents as the 4th edition version of this game. The rulebook is the same as it was back in 2017, so if you already own that 4th edition, this is the exact same game with the exact same components, but it has different cover art, a plastic insert, and a deeper box to fit all the extras. And all the extras will fit in this big box. It's a little bit misleading that they have this Collector's Edition stretch goals box down here because that's not actually going to exist. The Book of Adventures might fit into the box. They haven't officially announced this, but they think that it should, and they're going to do a little bit more work on that and then provide an update with some pictures to confirm. If you're an owner of the 1st edition version of this game from Z-Man that came in the coffin box with the rectangular board, this board won't actually fit into the new box, so they did offer a replacement for only €4 that you can get to replace your older board. So if you just want to upgrade your existing game, the Castaway Veteran Pledge is the one that you want to look at. And if you do have the older Z-Man version of the game, you have that add-on to upgrade your board, or you could just get the neoprene playmat instead. And if you want to see all the differences between all the different versions, there's this really handy table here, and I'll leave a link to this image in the description below so you can go ahead and check it out for yourself. And I do want to get into the daily unlocks for the Collector's Edition, but before we do that, you may have noticed that the miniature for the Friday support character didn't match the original artwork on the card, so they listened to their backers, and people had mentioned this, and they created some updated art so that the character miniature now matches the card. Small change, but appreciated. And now let's get into all the daily unlocks for the Collector's Edition, and none of these are going to be offered in retail, so if you want these might be a reason for you to back this campaign now. And the first unlock is the modular camp model, and this actually comes apart into 8 different pieces, and we can just go ahead and watch this video to see exactly how it pieces together. And the way that this works is you're actually going to be building your shelter throughout the game, so you can go ahead and put this model together to represent all the different pieces that you've gathered. And if you're wondering if this fits in the shelter space on the board, we can see in this image that it does. And next we have the Volcano Dice Tower, which is going to add a little bit of theme to your dice rolling, and it's made out of cardboard and stands about 12 centimeters tall. And just note that it doesn't actually smoke, and I don't recommend lighting this on fire. And then we have a brand new mini expansion that's called the Caves expansion, and this comes with a brand new tile that represents a natural shelter, and players can actually spend an action on this tile in order to explore the cave. And when you do that, you draw a token to see what you find. This will come with its own set of pros and cons, but will give you a little bit of variety if you want to play the game a little bit differently. And next we have the Horse Companion, which can be played with one of your actions to ignore the rules of distance on the map. Any actions done with the horse are treated as if they were completed just adjacent to your shelter. And as a nice little bonus, this unlock also came with 10 new cards to add to your Gather Action Adventure deck to increase replayability. And next we have miniatures for the 10 supporting items in the game, and these are just going to replace the pawns that come with the original version of the game. And then we have the Parrot Companion, which is good for the party's mood because each round it provides determination tokens to the party. And this also threw in 10 bonus cards to go with the Explorer Adventure deck. And then of course we have recess boards, which are always nice to see so that your cubes don't bounce around across your player board. And those are all the stretch goals we have right now for the Collector's Edition, but there's going to be more unlocked throughout the campaign, so make sure you check back before the campaign ends. And now let's get into the Book of Adventures expansion, and this is going to have 50 scenarios all ranked by difficulty, and this is really nice to see because it makes the game more accessible to players depending on how long of a game they want or how difficult of a game they want. It also adds more variety with new scenarios that might be more appealing to different players. 10 of these scenarios are brand new from the designer, and then there's going to be another 10 scenarios that are brand new but from the fan base. And then there's going to be 30 scenarios that are going to be different variations on some of the scenarios that have been already included. And then of course there's going to be a few more scenarios added during this campaign through daily unlocks that are not going to be available in retail. And I'm just going to go over about 10 of the scenarios that are offered in this book to give you an idea of what to expect. First, we have Reality Island, where players are stranded on an island and they have to win a reality TV show. And then there's Meds for Dearest Mother, where players have to visit the island in order to gather ingredients to create a cure for your mother's disease. And your mother's also so sick that you have to take her along with you and care for her. And then there's Get to the Choppa, which I don't actually see in the list of games here, so I think they might have changed the name. But in this one, players have to stop raiders from taking too many artifacts away from the island. And then there's Front Page News, where players are detectives unraveling the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster. Then there's the Zombie Attack, where players must survive zombie hordes in a barricaded shelter. Then there's the Bigfoot spotted scenario, where the goal is to take a photo of Bigfoot in the Rocky Mountains, and you're going to have to deal with things like the elevation and the cold weather. And then there's Apocalypse Yesterday, where treasure hunters have angered the gods, and the gods are lashing out against all of humanity and throwing the world into an apocalypse. And players have to return to the island to purify all the stolen artifacts before the island sinks into the ocean. And then we have the evolution of the chupacabras, where players are going to have to catch different types of the cryptids active across different conditions and areas of the board, each of them behaving a little bit differently than the others. And then we have the Forbidden Island, where players have to repair their boat and leave before the evil of the island takes them over. And then there's the Piranha Cook-Off, where players are going to be competing to create the best dishes for a set of judges, and players are going to have to navigate around the island and gather some different rare ingredients and create these dishes before those ingredients expire. I only listed a few here, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of variety, and I have some different ones on the screen now if you just want to go through them and see the different titles of those scenarios. And I'm going to go over all the daily unlocks for the Book of Adventures so far. And the first one we have is a competitive scenario, and this is a scenario where players are on different teams, and they're on teams of competing dojos, yin and yang, and players are going to be competing to win the best school of martial arts. And then we have another exclusive scenario, and this one is called The Lost Memories, and this is a horror scenario, which means that you're going to need the Mystery Tales expansion in order to play this scenario. And in this one, players are patients in a mental hospital, and they need to venture out into the island to earn back their lost memories. And the next one is a really nice unlock for a 55 card deck of invention cards. And this grants cards for all the scenario specific inventions. And these were provided on the scenario sheet originally, but now players can gather and track them as separate cards. And the next daily unlock upgraded the actual book with a hardbound edition with a thicker, sturdier cover of 2mm cardboard, and thematic decorations and special effects like embossing with golden foil, hot stamping, soft touch foil, and a spot UV finish. And then finally, we got another upgrade to the book with upgraded pages, and these pages are now going to be printed on Munkin Print cream paper. And I had no idea what that was, so I took a quick look, and it looks to be one of the highest quality papers available, and it's also environmentally friendly. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about the Collector's Edition and the Book of Adventures, but I do want to take a little bit of time now and go over the miniatures and how they've been added to the game, and the little bit of drama and issues that exist with them. And to understand the issue with these miniatures, you need to understand how the original tokens were used. And they originally came as these character discs that you would put out on the board. And each character actually has two tokens. One represents their activity in the morning, and one represents their activity at night. And when you put them out on the board, you can either decide to put tokens one by one, as you can see here, and this would represent two actions being done, but only for half the day. And doing it this way can maximize the amount of actions that you can complete, but you are more likely to fail or to get injured in the process. And if you want to ensure your success, you can actually stack two tokens on top of each other so that they are working together to complete the task. And in this case, the top character token is important to note, and this is called the leading character. And this is important to distinguish because the leading character is the one that gets affected for any special effects that happen. So this, of course, leads us to the question to how does this work with miniatures when you can't stack miniatures? And the answer that is provided for this is you're actually going to have this little token that the leading character can sit in so that you know which character is the leading character when you have multiple characters on one action section of the board. And this means that players are going to have extra pieces to manage, and they're going to have to find and place these tokens and then remove them at the end of the action phase. So this objectively just makes this whole scenario just a little bit more fiddly, which might be a good trade-off depending on how much you want miniatures in your game. But then there's the issue that this still doesn't really work 100% of the time because you can actually have more than two miniatures in a single action space. So let's pretend for a second that these three miniatures were on the same action space. And of course this one with the ring is the leading character. So with this one being the leading character, which one of these two is the support character? Well, you don't really know. What you would have to do is put another ring on one of these other characters. So let's assume that this man here was the other leading character. So now you have two leading characters and one support character. But now you don't know which character this woman is supporting. So now you're going to have to strategically place your minis somehow to indicate this, which is just making this way more fiddly and confusing than the game needs to be. So now you need to ask yourself again, is having minis in this game a good trade-off? And I still haven't even pointed out that all these miniatures are going to take up a lot more space on your board, especially since you can't stack them, which is just going to make your whole play area a lot more messy. And then these miniatures are just adding a bunch more cost to your game because these miniatures have a cost to begin with. And then they're also taking up extra space and adding weight to the box, which is going to make shipping more expensive as well. And to make matters worse, you're actually going to be getting a lot of duplicate miniatures in this box. Each character has 2 actions, which means 2 miniatures to go along with that. And then each character comes in a male and female form, so you need another 2 miniatures. So for each character, you're actually getting 4 near identical miniatures. So once again, does adding these miniatures justify the extra cost, space, and fiddliness that they add to the game? Let me know in the description below because I'm curious to know what all of you think. For me, I'd rather have the more streamlined game using the tokens, or even better, upgraded meeples, because meeples can still be stacked. And I'd still be happy with this bigger box, but instead of using that extra space to store the miniatures, I'd use this as a big box solution to store all the extra expansions and the Book of Adventures as well. Currently, there's no pledge on this campaign to omit the character miniatures, so if you also want to see a no character mini pledge like I do, I suggest going over to their campaign page and leaving a comment in their comment section. They have been very responsive to the audience so far, which I'm really impressed with. So I'm sure they'll address it with some sort of solution if enough people ask for it. But if you want to upgrade your game even more, there's the neoprene playmat for $21, and then there's also the horror dice set, which will replace the dice in the expansion with more thematic dice. And then we have the painted resin tokens, which I actually prefer the wooden tokens much more. And then there's the spyglass set, which actually makes the game a little bit easier. When you play with the spyglasses, you can actually discard a spyglass to gain 5 determination tokens. And then as I mentioned before, they are offering a physical version of all the cards from the companion app, and I would suggest just going for the bundle because buying them individually just makes no sense. And then there's the upgrade pack if you just want to upgrade your core game, and then they have the individual expansions and a bunch of sleeve packs. And if that's not enough upgrades for you, you can also check out the upgrade kit that's currently sold on BGG. And I don't get anything out of this, but I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well if that's something that you want to check out. And before we wrap up, I wanted to compare the different pledges and see how they all stand up against each other, especially after we consider shipping. And then I also wanted to compare those pledges to the retail option and the different combinations of getting a pledge with some parts retail. So I have the main pledges up here on the left, and I'm using Canadian shipping because I live in Canada, and we can see the totals here on the right. And I also have the US equivalent. And then I have all the different prices, and I actually got these from my local game store to see what the different prices were buying at retail right now. And then I just estimated what the book would be when it comes out. So then up here on the right, I have a little table that outlines the total costs if you wanted to get everything. So that means the core game, the Book of Adventures, as well as the 2 expansions offered in this campaign. So if you were to get the Everything New pledge plus the expansions in retail, it'll end up costing you about $303 Canadian. But then if you were to buy the Veteran Upgrade Pack, but then buy the core game and expansions in retail, it'll end up costing you about $328. So we can already see that the Veteran Upgrade Pack is actually worse value, which is normally the case when you already own part of the game. And then finally, if you were to get the Endless Adventure pledge, which means you don't need to get anything from retail because you're getting everything from the campaign, it ends up costing the exact same price as the first option. But then if you were to buy everything retail, it would actually only cost you $200 Canadian, but then keep in mind that you wouldn't be getting all the daily unlocks. So with a little bit of subtraction, you can see that all those daily unlocks are costing you about $100. So it's up to you if all those exclusives are worth $100. I'll leave a link to this spreadsheet in the description below if you want to play around with it and also put in your own shipping rates and currency conversions, so I hope that's useful to you. And if you're wondering what I'll be doing, I'll be getting the Everything New pledge without the expansions, but then I will also be getting the neoprene playmat, all the cards from the app. I'm not going to be getting these horror dice because I don't really think they're that much different than the dice that come with the game. I'm not going to be getting these resin tokens because I just don't really like the look of them, and I don't think they really match the rest of the game. The spyglass set is only €3, and I do want them because I think it's going to allow me to have more fine-tuned control over the difficulty of the game, but I don't really want them as cardboard tokens because the other tokens were already upgraded in that daily unlock. So I think what I'm going to do is just 3D print these on my printer because I'm sure I can find a model online, and if not, I can easily mock something up myself. Once I find or design a model of my own, I'll leave a link to that in the description below if any of you are interested as well. If I want the expansions down the road, I'll just buy those later because there's lots of other things I can do with my money right now. And that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, you can hit that like button to let me know. And until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.